I thought about something else. We're gonna do a little guide to captain skills. Something what I've noticed is we have a lot of new players here. Actually, yes, believe it or not, we have a lot of new players. And they don't know too much about captain skills and so on. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do kind of a line of videos per class about what the captain skills are, why you should take them, and what would be very good to take. So, hello, you're a new player. Yeah, of course, Shang. Now, we're gonna go over the captain skills of a battleship first. In the first line, we have gun feeder, we have demolition expert, consumable specialist, emergency repair specialist, incoming alert, fire alerts, and preventive maintenance. Now, we start with the first, what kind of first you would take on a battleship. Demo expert is something you would not take on battleships at all. Barely, because the 1% fire chance is not gonna make the oven hot or something. It's not gonna make a big difference. So I just want to like give a little overview what you would take and what not. Demo expert is something you would never really take. You don't benefit from it at all. Consumer specialist, also not really, because it only buffs main gun, reload booster, defensive A, and these things lower. Now there are some ships like John Bart, for example, where you can think about it because it would reduce your main gun reload booster. But just for, in St. Vincent's example, for Def A or spotter plane or fighter, it's not really worth it. So it's something you usually don't take as well in the first slot. Emergency repair specialist is something you can think about because it benefits your whole tankiness by getting you faster damage con and heals. And something like incoming fire alert. I know I see a lot of people taking it, but honestly, the more you play, the more map awareness and awareness on your ship and so on, shooting people crossfiring you will have, and then you really don't need to spend a point of this, because in the end, this can just confuse you most of the times, and even if it benefits you, you notice it, you might turn and it will just trigger again and somebody else shoots. So it's not really usable and I wouldn't recommend on doing it. Preventative maintenance, again, something that can be very good for you because 30% of a module being incapacitated is always good. And so on. So, like, these 3 perks are usually very good in the first slot. The other 3 you would never really take under no circumstance. Now, we're going to the second line, which has a lot of amazing skills. We have Grease of Gears, main gun battery traverse time. Now, this is usually a must-have on a battleship. Why? Because most battleships have insanely slow turret traverse, and it really helps you out a ton. Now, why didn't I take it on St. Vincent? There are some exceptions. There are some BBs where you can get away with it by not using it. Most of these BBs have between 30 and 35% turret traverse time, which you will find mostly in higher tiers, and that's good enough for a battleship, so you don't really need to take it. Again, for other ships with slower turret traverse, you always want to take it, because there's nothing more brutal when you play, for example, the Yamato, and you have, I think, a base of 72 seconds, and then you add the reload mod on it, and it's like 80 seconds or something, turret traverse, which is absolutely awful. So, usually a must-have for battleships, unless your turret traverse is really good, and we're talking about 36 or better seconds. IFHT, no need to take it at all, unless you have a ship that is secondary build, and it cannot pen certain thresholds. The only ship line where I would recommend using IFHE is the German battlecruiser line, which is the secondary build line. And you can buff the secondaries to get a certain thresholds and pen ships. Other than this, it's a no-brainer and no-go. You should not take it on any battleship at all. Now we come to a very, we'll call it busted skill. It's actually a really strong skill. It used to be, I think, 4 points, but nowadays it's 2 points. It's Brisk. Increases your ship speed whilst remains undetected for by 10%. Absolutely amazing skill. A lot of times you have moments where you want to disengage. You're not always gonna be spotted, even in the CV game. And it's crazy how you can pump up ship speeds with it. You have battleships that reach 40 knots with brisk. You can compensate, for example, with a Vermont to get a bit more speed out of it while it's undetected between the salvos. So it's a very strong skill, and I recommend it on most battleships. Next we have Vigilance. Now Vigilance, you can take it. Usually you don't need it. Again, it's all about map awareness. If you know where a destroyer is, or a submarine roughly, you can mostly guess where torps will come from and already adapt the control, like the turn for it. Now there are some really clumsy ships, such as GK. Yeah, I think GK is the best example. Where turning takes ages, or something like I think Monty is actually okay. I'm not sure. Monty has a pretty bad rudder shift. Where you have a big turning circle. Again, for GK you still need it. Don't need it because you have Hydro, and that can help you out a ton anyway. But if you have some awareness, you don't really need to go for this. Now we come to something very interesting. Priority target. Why priority target? It shows you how many people currently aim at you. That's way better than the skill above it, which shows you somebody shooting you right now from a certain distance. Because it gives you a lot of information. How many people are trying to actively kill me now? Plus, if you have a destroyer that aims on you and he switches to torp view from main gun view, the indicator goes down. If it goes up again instantly, you have kind of a little surprise trick that you know that somebody is actively torping you right now, and it can help you out a ton. Next we move to an 8, so it's definitely recommended by me. Next we go to an AA defense ASW expert. Don't bother with it. AA is nothing really to be worth mentioning in this game, unfortunately, and the depth charge damage is not going to change much, because if you get a direct hit with an ASW plane, it smacks anyway. So you don't really need it. Now, super heavy AP shells. First, it sounds pretty good. 7.5% more damage on AP. But then you get the down times with longer fire extinguishing time and longer floodings. Should you take it? There's two ships where you can think about it. First of all, it must be a ship where you in 99% or even all the time shoot AP. There's 3 ships in the game. Kind of 3, maybe more. There's a few more. There's not 3. But every ship that overmatches 32mm and has a massive gun caliber. So, Satsuma, Yamato, Musashi, Shikishima, and Incomparable. Those are insane AP bombs. Where even shooting AP on a DD, you will most likely get more damage than with an HG salvo, because the overpen damage is so high. We're talking about like Incomparable's AP damage, Citadel damage is like 19.5k. That means an overpen is literally doing 2k damage, which is a lot. There you can think about taking it, because you literally never shoot HG. Never on those ships. On Yamato, the HG is even giga garbage, so there's literally zero reason to shoot it at all. These are the only ships where you don't need to take it, but where you can think about it. All the rest, you just butcher yourself, because you will a lot of times switch to HG in certain moments. And when the person goes nose in, you can't overmatch him or so on, then you're gonna switch to HG most likely. So it's a skill that can work, and it benefits some ships, but you pay a hefty price with the fire and flooding times, and it's only very useful for a few ships. Now, long-range secondary battery styles. First of all, around 80 to 90%, those are both secondary skills, by the way. 80 to 90% of the battleships you want to build into a full tank build. That means you don't want to buff the secondaries at all, because you're not using the battleship efficiently enough for it. You rather want survivability over secondary output. There is exceptions, like full secondary ships like the Schlieffen line. That's where you want to go secondaries, because they really excel at it. But at most other BB lines, you want to go full survivability, and then secondaries are not really interesting for you. Worth mentioning though is one ship. I know it's very into detail now, but one ship is worth it mentioning, and that's Ohio. Ohio is a ship which you can build in a hybrid way. So you want to have long range secondary shells, but that's it. The rest goes all into the tank build skills, which you see here later on. And that's it. Simply because Ohio has better improved secondary dispersion. And I think 9 or 8% base fire chance. So what you basically have is a ship that you can still build into tankiness. But at the same time you have 10 flamethrowers to each side. And you get a ton of fire damage out of it. Plus it's a very tanky ship in brawls. And you can use it very effectively. Moving on. To probably, I think this might be the skill, not only battleships, but we're moving to Adrenaline Rush. I think this is the skill you should always take on every ship in the game. No matter if it's a battleship, a cruiser, a destroyer, Adrenaline Rush is one of the best, if not the best skill in the game. What it does is, the more you damage, the more main gun reload, secondary reload, and so on you get. It's crazy. It's such a good perk. In a lot of situations, it can help you out winning a duel against an opponent who doesn't have it. Because there is people who don't run Adrenaline Rush. It's crazy, but it's true. But it's insane. It's a no-brainer. You want to always take it. You always benefit from it. Because you never end a battle in full HP. Unless you're maybe a Shima and you never get spotted, or a submarine and so on. But other than that, it's an insanely strong skill and you should always take it. Basics to survivability. Now, this is an interesting perk because there's also this one. You have improved repair readiness. Now this one, what it does is the improved consumables efficiency each time your ship receives potential damage equal to 100% of the ship's base HP. Now, this works very well on ships with super heals, such as St. Vincent, the British battleships, and so on. Because what it does is, it lowers your cooldown on these super heals, which is very, very good. It's very, very good. For ships that have a normal heal, such as GK or something, you can rather say you go basics of survivability, because what this does is, you don't get your heal faster, but that heal is not that good anyway. But what you do is, you take less damage from fires, from flooding, and your modules will be ready again. So, it depends on what ship you play. If you have a super heal, it's definitely worth taking this one. If you have a normal heal, you can also go for this one. Like, you can really choose between these two. It's not like a fixed statue what you should go here. Then we have a AA sector thingy. Forget it. Worthless piece of garbage. I'm not joking, just don't even think about it. You won't really benefit from it. And now to the last line. First of all, again, if you're not secondary build, these two. These three, to be exact. Concealment Expert is a must-have, and fire prevention. These two are essential for every tank build in the game. Again, there is some variation. You could say you drop Brisk and you drop one of those skills. Or Brisk and this and you get an extra heal. And Damage Con Emergency Repair Expert. That's up to you. Like, Brisk is for me such a good skill. I usually take it on all BBs nowadays as well. But you could drop one of these into these two for this one, for example. These ones are a must. These ones are the core of a tank build because Concealment Expert, you have the chance to go dark. Sure, CV games it's harder, but it's still mandatory. And Fire Prevention, so you don't burn all over the place. What Fire Prevention basically does is you burn in 3 places, maximum instead of 4. Which you will feel a lot of times because it's not about that you have only 3 places that can burn. But fires can only start on places where people are shooting. Now, most DD players and to a certain threshold cruisers, but I'm gonna go gunboat DDs mostly, don't have pen to damage you with HE besides the superstructure. So naturally what's happening with gunboat DD players is they all gonna spank your superstructure with HE. With fire prevention, they can still spank your superstructure, but they can get only one fire. They're not interested in shooting the front and back of your ship because they're only shattered there. They will constantly go for your superstructure. So what you essentially do is cut a double fire to 1. Because they guaranteed will most likely always shoot your superstructure. Because they do damage, next to fire damage. It's a very strong skill there. And then, again, we go to the other skills. Furious improves your ship characteristics for each active fire on board. Main gather reload time, dispersion of shells fired by the enemies attacking you. The only ship, and that's a meme build, I'm not joking again, the only ships where you can use that is battleships with a super heal. Because then they can fully heal the fire damage, you will be able to heal multiple fires, but even then it's more of a meme. It can work on a Conqueror, for example, on a line and so on, but definitely not recommended. And on ships that have normal heals, don't even think about it, it's a waste of 4 points. Moving on. Better secondary dispersion, manual secondary battery aiming. This one, again, for secondary ships like Schlieffen line, the German battlecruiser line. That's it. Any other tank build, don't think about it, you don't need it. Now, next one we have close quarters expert. Technically, what you could do is you could drop concealment expert and fire prevention. One of them, like I can show you real quick what I mean. If I go to my Schlieffen, what you could do is you could drop concealment expert and go for close quarters combat. So what it does is when you're in secondary range, you have even better main gun reload. The problem is why I don't do it is you give up concealment. Hello. You give up concealment, and with that way you won't be able to utilize the strength on Schlieffen, which is secondaries and concealment is the same. And you open up pretty much the secondaries when you're spotted. So again, it's not really a good perk to take somewhere. There's nothing really where you would take it. And with this, you can have pretty much an overview of what to take with battleships and whatnot. This is a core idea that you understand a guide. What you want to go on a battleship and what you don't. Again, there's 3 types of battleships. Full tank build, secondary fully focused, and hybrids. A hybrid build. But mostly 90% of the battleships will be tank build. 5 to 10 secondary build, and then you have the 1%, which is for example Ohio, where you can go hybrid build. So this is a little guide for how to skill battleships, what the perks do, what you should take and what you shouldn't take. And I hope you enjoyed it. I would love if you can leave a follow, a sub on YouTube, and that means a lot to me. I'll catch you next time. Bye bye. Good. So that was a little overview of how to skill battleships. Now we're back to Twitch, and I hope you enjoyed this little thingy. I agree with Super Heal, you don't care much about fire and floodings, yeah. But Ferrara, thank you for your follow. 580 ships. Are there still so many in the game? Yeah, they are. Good. 380k in loss. Oh, dude, that's rough. That's really rough. But let's win now. Let's make it great. I want to work Yama today. I want to have a working game with Yama. So let's go. I hope you enjoyed this little overview. I feel like since we have a lot of new players, we wanna push that type of content as well, so people are not going into a cold shower without knowing